My name is Howard Sachs, and I'm the director of the Rural Life Center, which is sponsoring Rural by Design, a week-long series of events dealing with rural sustainability both here in Knox County and around the globe. I trust you've all gotten one of these wonderful brochures that tells you in detail about all the events throughout the week. Let me just call your attention to what's coming up in the next few days. We are going to take a break tomorrow and catch a breather, but then on Thursday our conversation goes global with two events. In this room at 11:10 in the morning on Thursday, which is our common hour here in Kenya, we're having a conversation with 4 Kenyan alumni who are coming back and some students who are here who've had experience with issues of rural sustainability globally. So it'll be an opportunity to see what's going on with efforts to promote sustainability in rural communities around the world and how we might learn from those experiences to think about how we might ensure the vitality of our community here in Knox County. For those of you who are students, it will also give you a picture of what you might do after you leave Kenya. And then on Thursday evening, again in this room at 7 o'clock, we have a very special lecture by Dewey Thorbeck, a very interesting man, an architect by training, who has created the Center for Rural Design at the University of Minnesota. And what he has tried to do with his colleagues is develop a new, very comprehensive way to help rural communities around the world think about how best to plan and design their landscape in order to ensure the sustainability and vitality of rural character. A very interesting individual with a very interesting point of view, and I hope you'll come to that too. As I hope you'll come to all the events throughout the week on Friday and Saturday as well. Check the brochure and for times and locations, and just like this, it's free and open to the public. One of the things that is necessary for any sustainable community is collaboration and cooperation. And so I was very, very pleased that the Center for the Study of American Democracy was willing to work with us at the Rural Life Center to put on this very special event with the director of the Ohio Department of Agriculture. So without further ado, I want to thank Tom Carrico and his staff at the center for helping to make this possible. And I would like to welcome Tom, who will in turn introduce our speaker. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you, Howard, and thank all of you for coming tonight. I'm Tom Carrico on behalf of the Center. I want to welcome everybody. We have a lot of students and Kenyan faculty and staff, and also see tonight a lot of Kenyan community members, which I think is very good for our speakers tonight. The Center hosts, as many of you know, a series of probing and civil discussions from all across the political spectrum about all manner of political issues of the day. We have intellectual and opinion leaders. So, for example, next week on April 10, we have Charles Murray, a nationally known libertarian, who will be here in this room talking on campus. But tonight we have a different side of things. The other thing the Center does is bring a lot of political practitioners to campus to talk and give their thoughts on practical politics. And it's our pleasure to be a part of Howard's week-long conference, Rural by Design. Our speaker tonight is definitely in the both the farmer category and the political practitioner. Although working on a farm here in rural Ohio for a long time, his career in public service has really extended to all levels at state and local government. And I'll see if I can get all this right. Several terms on the Greenfield City Council. He served as the mayor of Greenfield for 8 years, Highland County Commissioner for 6 years, 4 terms in the Ohio State House of Representatives, and 1 term in the Ohio State Senate. And just over a year ago, in February 2012, he was appointed the Director of Agriculture for the state. This is, of course, the Ohio cabinet level position. And there's really nobody better here in Ohio, I think, that can speak to the issues that we're talking about this week, than David Daniels. So thank you, sir, for joining us. And please join me in giving a warm opinion welcome to Mr. David Daniels.
Thank you, Tom, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I was glad that you introduced me. I thought that perhaps these people might have thought I was Paul Newman coming back from college on, but I'm not. I'm David Daniels, and I'm Director of Agriculture for the state of Ohio. And it certainly is a pleasure for me to be here tonight. I want to thank Kenyon College and all the work that they're doing on Rural by Design and to be a part of this program and asking me to be here. This series hits on a subject that's always been very close to my heart, as I've spent a great deal of my adult life working on the kinds of public policy issues and thinking about how the decisions that, as local elected officials, state elected officials, county elected officials, how the decisions that we make certainly tie in with the viability of our rural communities. I was born and raised in Greenfield, Ohio, right outside on our family's farm. And, you know, I bring to this job what I think is kind of an interesting perspective. I've had an opportunity to be a legislator. I now have the opportunity to be a regulator. And for the first 35 years of my life, I was a regulated businessman. So it's been interesting it's been very interesting for me to have been able to follow those changes through, see the different perspectives that I'm able to bring to this. My small hometown was about 5,000 people, and my family's lived there since the early 1800s. And as I had an opportunity to serve as small town mayor, I was really actually kind of excited when local residents came and asked me if I wanted to serve on city council and serve in local government. And I remember asking my father what he thought of that, and he said, "I don't think I'd do that, boy." He said, "Nobody thinks much of people that serve in those positions." And I didn't take his advice. I ran and won a city council seat. And you know, as we began to make decisions about our community, how it was run, I began to see the connection of the decisions that I was making and how it affected, first of all, Greenfield small rural lifestyle. How at times I felt hemmed in by being the mayor because I guess my interest had to stop at the city limits at that time. As a mayor of a small community, it was my job to look to those citizens and to take care of their needs. But, you know, and being a kid from the country, I didn't exactly have that opportunity to be serving the constituents that I'd grown up with. But, you know, as a small town mayor, you have an opportunity to handle everything from contracts, utilities, essential services, and all those things that go on in small rural communities. You know, I remember years ago, one of the things that we were working on was upgrading our cable franchise. And that has become quite an issue in rural Ohio as we look at broadband deployment and all the new technology that's out there. And our ability, I think that we all realize that it costs more per line mile to serve one house than it does serve 100. And it is difficult and has been difficult to roll those out. But I began to feel right then just exactly, you know, how my job was affecting what could or could not happen out in rural Ohio. And, you know, I then moved on to serve as a Highland County Commissioner, then state representative, then state senator. And the task of promoting the interest of my rural constituency evolved because I had multiple and a lot of times competing populations to serve. When you're working on policies that not only affect the people that live in the corporate limits, you also have to think about how that affects the folks outside the corporate limits, because they're using that as their trading center. They're using that as their as their community, their ability to get the services that they need out in the rural community. And you know, it gave me a perspective all the way up through the chain of government that I've served in, how those decisions are affecting the guy that's out there, and you look out, he's running his planner, and he's thinking about how he's going to pay his taxes. He thinks whether or not he's going to get any rain this year or not. He's trying to keep his farm productive. He tries to pass on that interest that's been in his family for years, and all the time he's thinking about doing that. We're out there trying to think about how we can make things better, how we're going to preserve the way things are being done in our rural communities. You know, we're a fifth generation family farmer. My family has farmed the same plot of land since the early 1800s. And the one thing I can tell you from the operation that we serve on is change is inevitable in our business. And as we have seen over the course of the years, farming's changed from the horses that my grandfather used to the equipment and all that. And I think that we always have to keep that in mind when we talk about where our rural communities are going and how they're going to survive. We need to recognize that we have been through changes all the way through. And, you know, as farming and our production changes, so does public policy. And it's got to change with the times, and a lot of times we're out working on that. We're out working on that quite a bit. You know, a lot of people criticize government for operating too slow, but it's designed to do that way. That way it gives us more of an opportunity to hear those ideas that come forward. Those ideas that come forward as part of the public discussion, they need to be vetted properly. So government is designed to work slow to give everybody the kind of input that they need so that they can come back and make their wishes known. And when a piece of public policy is going through, how does it affect? And a lot of times what is going on there not only affects this, but it affects 20 other things on down the road. So it needs thoughtful consideration as we're going through there. But I think that one of the things in Ohio we've noticed is we've got to find that balance between how fast it can move when it needs to, and you know, just to make sure, and also protect that ability for citizen input. But you know, the past several years have brought a lot of incredible changes to our state. Despite the predictions to the contrary, we're coming out of a recession pretty good. And, you know, there are a lot of things involved in that, but I stop and think about what Ohio would look like had it not been for agriculture over the course of the last 10 years, had it not been for what agriculture has been the bedrock of what all of our small rural communities would be. Where would Mount Vernon be? Where would Greenfield be without that agricultural base that has kept and sustained our small community over these entire many years? You know, some of the overarching things that we work on or have had the opportunity to work on as state policymakers, of course, education is always on the forefront of everybody's mind. How we fund schools, how we hold them accountable, how we make sure that every child in every area of the state of Ohio gets a good education. And there are people that think about that differently all the way through. There are people that think that money makes all the difference. There are also, you know, how we're delivering that we have to. You know, to help improve student success in Ohio, you know, we have to get them to master some basic skills so that they can compete not only in their hometown but all across the world, because we are becoming a more global society. You know, we've even had the Supreme Court weigh in. Governor Kasich recently announced a plan that would provide a fairer method that some believe for funding public schools. And you know, we've always relied heavily on property taxes in this state. As you can imagine, there's always been kind of a rural-urban divide when we start talking about those kind of things. But the governor's proposal would ensure that every school district that levies 20 mills in property taxes would generate the same funding as a district that had $250,000 worth of per pupil property well. And there's only 4% of the districts in the state of Ohio that have that, but a lot of those are larger urban areas, and a lot of times we end up having to have a much louder voice in those conversations. So Margaret Ann Rule and others that represent your area have got to scream twice as loud to make sure that they're heard through that process. But we're always going to have that, but it's not always about the money. A lot of times we need to look at what kind of options are out there for our students, and that's all part of this debate as well. I know in my hometown, I was a career tech grad. I knew from the time that I was 16 years old that I was going to be a farmer, and I was going to farm for the rest of my life. That was my life's ambition. That was all I was going to do. And I went to trade school. Well, I look around at the people that went to school with me and learned to trade, and they're the people that are providing business opportunities in my community today. There was a young man that I went that had an auto body class. I mean, every now and then we wreck a truck or we wreck a tractor or we wreck something that needs a little body work or a little mechanic work. That guy's actually got a shop in our community. He's employing 6 or 7 people, providing a good living for himself. And I asked him one day, I said, Jimmy, did you ever have any kind of regret, now that you're 56 years old, did you ever have any kind of regret of the career package up? And he said, no. He said, I'm making a good living. He said, I'm employing people. And he said, I'm providing a valuable service to my home community. The same way with the guy that went through the electric class with me. Was an electrician. He's got his own electric constructing contract. So all those things that we talk about education somehow tie back into this whole idea of where we're going to be and how we're going to sustain those rural communities out. You know, other things that we talk about is healthcare. I don't know about, I can't speak for this area, but I can tell you that down home, healthcare and healthcare delivery is getting more and more difficult for our small rural communities. My hometown of Greenfield, we had a municipally owned hospital. That was a full service hospital. You could go in and get whatever, get surgery there, all those kind of things. As healthcare costs rose, as you know, our small community just found that they could not sustain that self-standing hospital. And you know, we have to look for ways. We try to find ways to help keep that kind of health care, that kind of primary care available in our communities. And you know, kind of one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is what programs like Passport mean to our rural communities. That's a program where they go in and actually help you in your home. Try to tell a farmer that's got up out of the same bed for the last 60 years, walked out on his front porch every morning, walked off his front porch, and there was his workplace. As he gets into his aging years, fewer people to take care of him, tell him he's going to have to go to a nursing home. Tell him he's going to have to go someplace else and receive that kind of care because we don't have the capacity and the capability to do that for you. I'm going to tell you, you're going to devastate his life, and it's going to be difficult for that individual. So those programs.
David, what did you do in the community?
Pardon me?
Tell me what you did in the community. What did you do to take place in that hospital?
What did we do in the community to take place in the hospital? Well, actually, we were very fortunate. We were a community hospital. We recognized what difficulties that was going to bring. We then moved that hospital from a community hospital to a not-for-profit entity that was allowed to operate on its own. They went through some redesign of our old hospital, and as we began to lose market share, and we began to lose our ability to compete as a standalone entity, other hospitals were looking at us. We built such value in our asset there that as the larger hospitals came in, they simply couldn't walk away from it because it was too valuable an asset. So we now have, why it's not the Greenfield Area Medical Center, it's part of the Adena system, but we were lucky enough that that asset was so valuable that they couldn't just say, okay, we don't need that anymore. They actually staffed it and provided emergency care, some minor surgeries that were being done there. The bigger things, we still have to go someplace else. But if I clutch my chest in the middle of the night and call the life squad, I'm going to be within 15 minutes of getting into a hospital that can take care of me. So those are some of the things that we've been able to do, and those are some of the ways that we were able to manage our situation. Now, you know, what's being debated right now, right or wrong? It's part of the public debate. There's the conversation about whether we should or whether we shouldn't expand Medicaid services here in the state. Big contentious debate. A lot of our small rural hospitals, they end up with a higher amount of what they call charity care. They can't turn people away, they have to take care of them. That is uncompensated care that gets off the books. There are a lot of our rural hospitals that will say this will allow us to be viable a little bit longer. Again, you know, it's one of those issues that while everybody's kind of picking out which side they're on, you have to stop and think about, you know, how all that plays into our rural hospitals, how it plays into our rural lifestyle, and what the benefits could be of doing those things. But again, those are all part of the debate that takes place every day in the state capitol. You know, tax policy, kind of the same thing. You know, it always begins with the money and it always ends with the money. And, you know, what we're beginning to see right now as part of that whole conversation and through our biennial budget process, you know, the administration, the Kasich administration, has been laser focused on a lot of things about job creation. They have worked on it tirelessly. And one of the things that's happened actually in the state of Ohio now is that agriculture and food production have been recognized by Jobs Ohio as one of the core missions of their desire to attract those kind of industries into this state. First of all, people are always going to want to eat, and food processing, food manufacturing is kind of recession-proof, as proved as we went through the recession. You know, those were some of the things that helped sustain us. But they are looking to specifically bring those in, and I think that that's going to play a big part in our rural landscape and our rural community here in the state of Ohio. Stop and think about what it would mean for some sort of a processing facility to open up closer to here. Your farmers are going to have different markets for the products that they produce. Might even change some of their farming practices. There might be somebody that comes in and wants to do some vegetable canning, at least maybe on part-time through the year. That might open up opportunities for farmers to raise different crops as they go on. But those are the kind of things that the governor and this legislature have been working on that hopefully will help once again sustain our rural lifestyle, will help bring some of those jobs back in that's been kind of tough for us to get. You know, we've risen from 48 in job creation in this state to number 6 in the United States and number 1 in the Midwest. Sooner or later, all that is going to trickle down into our rural economy. One of the things that we found out here just today is that our actual per capita income has gone up. We're the second highest state in the United States as far as percentage of per capita income going up. That's a pretty big deal to talk about what and how that's going to come back into our communities. But you know, one of the things that happened this year that I think, and I have said over the course of the time that I've been able to get out and talk, is I think one of the best things that's happened in the state began on January 1st this year. And that was the estate tax in the state of Ohio was eliminated. If you look at our community, our farming community, we have 73,300 farms in this state. The average farm size is about 185 acres. The average age of the average farmer in the state of Ohio is 58 years old. And I have said that one of the reasons that our younger people, some of them, are leaving to find other opportunities is because they know at some point or another there's going to be a tremendous debt to pay as that passes down. I was reading the Cincinnati Enquirer article the other day that my dad clipped out of the newspaper in 1971. Estate taxes burden and threaten family farmers. From 1971. It's only taken us, 42, 43 years to correct that problem. But it's corrected, so that now when a young person grows up, gets agriculture in his blood, becomes a part of who he is, and wants to continue on, however that operation changes. Maybe he can't do it full-time, maybe he does it part-time. But however he wants that to change, he's now not going to have to worry about the debt that he gets saddled with. And I said, you know, on our farm, it took my dad and uncle 15 years to pay off the estate tax debt that they were handed down. They were lucky that they didn't lose the things, but they had good bankers that worked with them. They had the ability to miss a payment or two in late years and then make up for it when things got better. But I think that that's one of the things that is going to help provide us with a younger generation of farmers that are deciding to stay on the farm. But you know, I try to keep tying these things back to our rural policy, what it means to our rural communities, because everything that goes on as far as state government's concerned, tax policy, those decisions made in the county commissioner's office, all those things come back to affect how our rural communities are going to survive, what we're going to look like in the future. So it's important that everybody engage in that conversation. And it's important that we all understand how it works so that you all have an opportunity to be active participants in the process. I was serving as a state representative and a state senator. I wanted to hear from my constituents. I had an agricultural background. When people came in to me to talk to me about ag policy, about rural issues, I kind of got it. That's where I was from. But we've also got legislators that are serving not only from rural Ohio, but also from urban areas. They don't quite get it when you tell them that I don't have broadband. Don't have what? I mean, come on, everything's got that. Well, no, we don't. So, you know, you kind of have to, you know, bring them up to speed so that they understand some of the issues that we face out here, you know, every day. And, you know, a couple weeks ago was Ag Week in the state of Ohio. And one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to talk about the past, present, and future of Ohio agriculture. We started that week out by celebrating a farm that had been in production under the same family for 200 years. The Fagan farm in Asheville, Ohio, he was the seventh generation. We were standing there with the seventh generation. That plot of land was deeded over to that family by Thomas Jefferson for their service in the Revolutionary War, and it was signed by the Secretary of State, Madison. Stop and think around your local community. Knox County has got 18 farms in our Century Farm program. Stop and think about how many businesses in Knox County have been here for 100 years. How many people can say, how many businesses can say that they've been in production, that they've been employing people, that they've been providing for your local economy for 100 years? Those are things that we want to take time to celebrate, to look at. And now that we've had the opportunity to identify about 900 of these farms, we now find that we've got about 64 that we're going to be honoring this year in the bicentennial farm program. So, you know, we want to make sure that people understand how much we, the Department of Agriculture of the state of Ohio, appreciate what those farm families have done, what they've done for the communities that you all live in and have tried to build your life in. You know, it's not just the work that they do. I said a lot of times you drive down the road and you see a guy standing over his plant and he's working, and you think, well, that's what Joe does out there to make a living. But what Joe's doing is producing a product. You know, we employ almost 60,000 people in this state in food processing. So what Joe's raising is maybe going into one of those processing plants, providing a job for one of those people that work in a food processing plant. Every now and then a tractor breaks down, you know your local implement dealers talk about it. So a lot of the stuff that's going on in agribusiness and agriculture in a lot of our rural areas starts right with the producer that we've got, and how many times is not only how many times his money's turned, but how many times that he needs a service outside of his farm to keep him going. But you know, again, I've said a lot of times we don't recognize the fact that those guys have been around. A lot of times people in town don't recognize that those guys are in businesses that have been around for 100 to 150 years. And what would their community have looked like without it? But, you know, agribusiness, when agribusiness is successful, every industry around is successful. And again, you know, those are things that we do. Let me tell you a couple things about a program that we've got, a couple programs that we've got at the Department of Agriculture that we think kind of play into the sustainability, kind of play into some of the newer concerns that are coming out of consumers' thought processes and some of what's going on. We now, just this year, Ohio is the first state in the United States to enter into a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to inspect meat processing facilities as an equal to or same as program. That means the smaller facilities around that process animals to go out for sale, we can now, the state can inspect them, and they can provide that product interstate, not only intrastate. And what's that mean? There's a local producer over in Tuscarawas County that has been working with a community about a 40 or 50 mile radius, and he has been processing chickens, ducks, turkeys, a number of different species of fowl and birds, and doing it in 20 bird lots. So if you're raising 20 chickens, or if you've got 20 chickens out in your barnyard and you want to try to raise a local product that you can market locally, sell locally, we can now the state can now inspect those facilities where you can get that done. It's increasing his business, all right, first of all. The second thing it's doing is providing an opportunity for people that want to have that niche market to sell directly from farm to fork, from farm to plate, it's given them the opportunity to take those animals in there, have them processed and bring them back out so that they've got the ability to sell that not only locally, but they can also, I remember he was telling a story, he brought in some ducks, and then a fellow brought in some ducks, he processed them, they took them to Cleveland or Chicago and sold them in the farmer's market in Chicago, sold out over a weekend. But that was a market for that individual producer that wanted to do it. So we feel really good that we've got this program. While it allows those guys to, it allows the processor to process the animal and sell his product interstate. It also provides an opportunity for that small local producer that wants to raise a product on his farm or her farm and sell it directly to their neighbors. So we feel real good about what's going on there. So those are, that's a real positive thing that we've got going on. Now, another thing that I think that we always have to think about are what are some of the challenges that we face as an industry, because they are beginning to affect the way we do business. They're beginning to affect how we provide the products we do and what the impacts are to our local rural farming communities. And one of the things that we have been working on for the past year is nutrient management. It's been an extremely difficult issue in the state of Ohio, not only in Ohio, but across the United States as well. Many of you have seen the front page of the Dispatch or the front page of the Plain Dealer or the Toledo Plate when they talk about the large algal blooms that are going on in Lake Erie. Well, it's recognized that agriculture nutrients play a role in what's going on. I've told people, and they've asked me, I said, agriculture has always wanted to be part of an overall thriving economy. Years ago, we asked producers to change their production methods. The last time the Cuyahoga River caught on fire, we asked them to go out and look at conservation tillage, to look at the way that they were producing their product, and they did. And a lot of the things that we saw out of that was the advance of no-till, all those things. And we've been looking at how we're going to deal with this, and we have brought in various stakeholders. One of the things that we do at the Department of Agriculture, and we're very proud of, is every regulatory program that we have, we set up advisory committees where we ask those folks who are affected by the rules and regulations that we're about to put in place, how it will affect them. We ask them to help us develop programs that we can then deliver to solve some of the problems that we got. One of the very things that we're doing is this year is we've put out we've got a piece of legislation out there. We have asked all the commodity groups, all the farmers union, all those folks to come in and say, help us build this program. Help us build something that we can be successful at that's going to solve some of the problems that we're facing. We have tried to allow agriculture to lead the way. We know that agriculture isn't the only problem that's out there, but everybody recognizes that it's a contributor. One of the things that I've tried to tell people is agriculture has always led the way. We've led the way in the economy in the state of Ohio for all these years. We've done it in the past, we've done it in the present, we're going to be the future of Ohio's economy. But we also want to be leaders as it comes to how we deal with those issues, how we deal with the stewardship of our land, how we deal with the stewardship of all the resources. And, this change is going to come hard. I was talking to a group of people the other day, and one of the gentlemen there says, I don't know who you think you are, but who do you think you are to tell me how to change my production methods? And he said, you probably never had a pitchfork in your hand in your life. And I said, well, give me the microphone. And I said, buddy, for the first 35 years of my life, I spent every working minute of my day on it working into the pitchfork. So, I know that that's going to take place. But the changes that we've asked, agriculture's asked people to make, have always proven to benefit them and the environment as well. Stop and think about what no-till farming did to us and some of those conservation practices we put in years ago have done. I mean, it's allowed us to produce for less cost. It's allowed us to, on some levels, be a better steward of the land that we're on. It's made us more productive over the course of all those years. So while we understand that that's going to be difficult, we also understand that change is going to be inevitable, and we're going to work every day to work with that community to make sure that we're putting together programs that they're going to be able to work with. But you know, another thing that's been a challenge, but it's been a blessing to the state of Ohio, is the shale development and what's going on in eastern Ohio. You know, I was talking to a state representative the other day, and he asked me, and believe you me, there's issues that have come to the forefront of everybody's mind of the shale development and what's going on. But I was talking to one of the state representatives, and they asked me if there'd been, what's it doing to the farming community over there? What kind of, you know, what's been the effect on that? And I said, well, in some cases it's been very positive. I was talking to a local implement dealer, and I was over in Harrison County last year, and he told me that his business was actually better than it had ever been. That his business in 1 year was better than it had been in the last 10. And I said, no kidding. He said, yeah. He said, people are starting to get some lease payments coming in. And he said, they're actually coming in upgrading their equipment. He said, for guys that were thinking about getting out of farming on their small farming acres that had older equipment, he said, this allowed them to upgrade their equipment. And I said, what are they buying? I said, huge tractors. He said, no. He said, actually, they're being pretty good about their purchase choices. They're stopping and thinking about, you know, just what size tractor do I need to work here. And, you know, one of the things that I've said is, in a lot of cases, it's allowed them to stay on the farm. It's allowed them to be more productive. We all heard the story about the farmer that won the lottery, and he said, you know, what are you going to do with your winnings? He said, I'm going to keep farming until they're gone. Well, that's a lot of what's happened with the shale industry over there and how it's helped. But you know, as that industry evolves, we also have to make sure that it's being done in an environmentally sensitive way. And I think that the state of Ohio has stepped forward and put together some pretty tough and strict regulations just on how that process is going to work, what's going to happen with the brine, with the fracking water. Those kind of things have all been part of the discussion that's going on. So, you know, it's been a positive, I think, for agriculture in a lot of senses over in there. But, you know, we've seen the good times and the bad. There's always going to be challenges, but probably one of the things that excites me the most about agriculture and what's going on right now is the things that we don't know that we're going to be involved in the next 50 years. A couple of years ago, a guy by the name of Dale Stokes called me, and he said, David, he said, I need your help. He said, I want you to come over, and I said, I want you to visit my farm. And I knew Dale. Dale's been a farmer over in Clinton County for a number of years, and I said, you know, he was always an alternative crop guy. He was raising blackberries and strawberries and raspberries and stuff like that, and didn't really fit in with the Highland County model of agriculture, or the Clinton County model of agriculture. But I said, sure, Dale, I'll come over and take a look at your place. And as I was standing there talking to Dale, little did I realize that what he was doing is he was doing some research with blackberry extract. And he was working with the Ohio State University Medical Center on what that extract could do and what increased blackberry enzymes in somebody's system can do to prevent various types of cancers. Colon cancer, cancers of the mouth, stomach cancer. He's been working on this with Ohio State for a number of years and providing what may very well be probably a great preventative medicine as far as cancer research is concerned. You know, those are some of the things that Ohio State local producers are working on all over the state. So when we think about what our community is going to look like, what agriculture is going to look like in the future, we may very well be the pharmacy or part of the world's pharmacy. And the things that are going on out there that we find out every day, that the products that we've got the ability to produce and raise and how they can interact with our bodies and what it can mean for not only that, but what it can mean for the future. You know, look every day. There's a new product that comes out. Who would have thought we've been making biofuels, ethanols, those kind of things with corn, and why there's always some controversy around that, whether you ought to be using that seed stock or that grain for fuel instead of food. Now they're looking at cellulosic ethanol, biofuels that will take that argument away. You know, we look every day and we see manure or rubber from dandelions. We're making asphalt from manure, products that were normally throwaways on the place. But every day there's something new that comes out that makes me excited about where agriculture is going in the future and what it's going to look like. Yes?
Is hemp on the table? Why aren't Ohio farmers given the ability to grow biomass hemp, which has a higher cellulose content than corn? It's a disease-resistant crop. It's a drought-resistant crop. It's renewable every 90 days. Not only is the cellulose from the plant equal, I mean, it's cellulose to cellulose, the seed from the plant, the biofuel that you can get from that, anything that is petroleum-based, can be made from that. Yet I hear nothing about hemp as a I'm not talking about growing marijuana.
I understand. I understand.
No self-respecting marijuana smoker wants to smoke stems and seeds. That's what you're growing when you're growing biomass hemp, is stems and seeds.
And the answer to that is no. And the reason for that is the high ethanol plants are just now beginning to get into cellulosic processing, and they're just now beginning to put those methods into place. So right now, there's no place to take it. There's no desire for that product here in the state right now. So I think that if it becomes, if those processes become more prevalent in the plants here, I think you're going to see.
Why isn't it?
Just simply because of the cost of technology, and they're not there yet.
What technology? There's harvesters. I mean, the technology exists.
I understand that, but there's not that kind of broad-based support. I mean, right now they're using that. They're still set up to handle the grain. It takes a while for them to retool their local process or their processing plants, as I understand. So, but I think that when that happens, you're going to see miscanthus grass. You're going to see a lot of other things come in there that never were viable crops before, but all of a sudden will be. But just if I can say a couple more words about a couple things, and that's, you know, one of the things that we've been very proud of at the Department of Agriculture is our farmland preservation program. We've got a number of different programs out there that we allow people to donate easements to us, and we can actually purchase easements. And we do that just simply to make sure that we maintain, hopefully we can maintain the kind of space that we need, not only for green space, but also for production agriculture as well. People have given us these plots of land to hold in trust, and we have done our best to make sure that we've done that, to try to keep that in agricultural production for the next 20 to, or for the rest of its life. Right now we've got about 50,000 acres that are preserved. We'd like to do more. We continue to chip away at it a little bit every year, but we continue to do that. You know, we've got 17 preserved farms here in Knox County, and 2 of those farms donated their easement, just simply said, I'm handing over my easement to you without any kind of compensation from the state of Ohio or from federal partners. 15 of them were part of our Clean Ohio Ag Easement Purchase Program. But, you know, again, you talk about where we are and how we're going to sustain agriculture into the future. And it's programs like these. It's attitudes that, as we go through the public policy process, is making sure that rural America's voice is heard, rural Ohio's voice is heard, to make sure that we as producers recognize that there are niche marketplaces out there available to us. And through the programs that we're able to advocate for on the state level, can provide you an opportunity to allow that to grow, whether it be through your processing, being able to get local processing, or those things done. But again, you know, I think one of the things that are going to sustain rural Ohio is I was born on a small rural community. I work in Columbus, I work in Reynoldsburg, but my heart has never left home. When you are born and raised on a farm, when you're born and raised in a rural community, it becomes a part of who and what you are. You just simply can't step away from it. And it's difficult. And I think that as long as we can continue to instill the kind of values that we do, to provide the kind of lifestyle that you're able to enjoy in rural Ohio. I think that those people that are born here, raised here, will always have a desire to be here. And I think that those people have the ability to bring their talents, their skills back in and help us continue. But, you know, it's been a pleasure for me to be here and offer remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.